はい、音声、映像、流れてますでしょうか？皆さんこんばんは。ユーズディアブロラボのユウでございます。一応、映像と音声のチェックも兼ねて、10分前にですね、配信開始するようにしました。赤丸さんおはようございます。音声映像大丈夫ですということでいつもありがとうございます。赤丸さん、先ほどまで、はい、井ノ丸さんの方の、はい、配信でもお疲れ様でした。今日の、そうですね、配信なんですけれども、ちょっとだいぶ迷いまして、時間が中途半端に被ってることもあって、ディアブロ4の、パッチ 2.1 のキャンプファイアチャットですね。こちらの方の配信を、半分というか、最後までやります。最後までやって、で、それが終わった後に、パスオブエグザイル2の、リビール、公式配信ですね。お披露目配信を、その後、続けてやっていこうと思います。一応、そうですね、ライブ配信としては別立てになっていますので、詳しくは公式ツイッターの方で、そうですね、URL チェックしてください。POE を、の方もご覧になりたい方は、少々お待ちください。一応 URL 貼り付けておきますね。ほんとご苦労様ですということでありがとうございます。はい、こっちですね。こちらがPOE2 の方のURL になります。ちょっとどうなるかわかりませんけれども、可能だったら、可能な限り、そうですね、情報をお届けしようかなというふうに思っています。ただ POE の方に関しては私語彙がというか、プレイにブランクがあって、語彙が心もとないこともあって、まあ、ちょっと訳しきれないような場所も、ちょくちょく出てくる可能性がありますので、その辺、ご了承ください。それだと、まあ、毎度のことではあるんですけれども、翻訳ですね。翻訳に集中してると、なかなかコメント欄を読む、タイミングを逸してしまうなんていうこともあるので、そのあたりも、ちょっと申し訳ないんですけれども、ご勘弁ください。フールさん、おはようございます。はい、今日もありがとうございます。アーリーアクセスの値段ですか？値段も30ドルになりました。はい。これですね。はい。アーリーアクセスパックは、30ドルから、の、プライスになりますよという、ポストが出ました。なので、最低価格、30ドル、ということですね。はい。なので、日本円だとどうだろう、4、5千円といったようなところでしょうか。はい。その代わり、本編の方、本番の方は、基本プレイ無料という感じですね。パスオブエグザイルの、課金モデルって、普通の、ゲームの課金モデルとだいぶ違うので、はい。 そうですね。あと何かあったかな。5分前。アンケート取らせていただきました。ご協力ありがとうございました。はい。おかげさまで、パスオブエグザイル2の関心が、やはり結構高いなという感じが、しましたので、で、あと今日も急遽ですね、配信したら見ますかみたいな、配信じゃない、アンケートを取りましたけれども、まあ、お答えいただいて、で、意外と関心がやっぱり高いなというのがあったので、頑張ってやろうということにしました。はい。フルさん。いつもみたいにエピックで買って他でもできるってなれば安いんですけどね、と。どうなんでしょうね。いけるんではないかなという気もするんですけど、正直どちらにも入れた悪いやつです。両方入れてくださって、もちろんありがとうございます。はい、ありがたいです。はい。ということで、早期アクセス詳細の、ライブチャット配信の、生通訳も、やろうかなということで、生通訳の文字入れるの忘れてたな。はい。ちょっと日本人ってか、英語に不案内な日本人にとっては大事な情報なので入れるべきでしたね。はい。それでは3分前になってきたので、今現在、Diablo IV のその、公式の、ページの方は、なんだったかななんかのビデオを流してるので、前座のビデオを流してるので、そちらの方に映像を切り替えますね。はい。で、音声も。
Early collaboration, which was really what set us up for success.
When the animator came back with it, going from post to post rather than your normal animations, I was like, yes, that's it. That's what it should feel like.
公式の音声の方聞こえてますでしょうか？
When you first find the Priestess of Hatred, it's going to look like a lifeless human corpse. And you're like, doesn't look like a boss fight. I'm in a boss arena. What's going on? But as you approach, you see that the body gets pulled into a giant pool of hatred. And then out of that pool of hatred comes this giant mass of tentacles. And that is the boss.
ありがとうござい
So
ま
after
す。
your animation, it gets to come to me. And I get to do all of the really cool visual effects and show what those tentacles are doing when they impact the ground, when they slap something, when they hit the player.
あと2分弱ほどでキャンプファイアチャットが開始しますよということですね。はい。
Really gross because there's like this part of the torso of the humanoid that has been kind of hollowed out and now has teeth. The tentacles come out from the mass and they grab the humanoid and kind of pull the body back so that the slit in the belly opens up and all of the hatred just pours out in a straight beam. It's pretty gross.
The hollows are just such a unique family. From the moment they spawn in on your screen, you can tell that they are different. They have just such unique behaviors and animations.
We were able to execute on a vision that's really just so different than what we typically do.
The whole process made me feel very proud of our whole team.
Everyone just got it. They understood what the monster was, they got the vision, and it just worked.
The eye on the screen has many functions.
プールさん、ロットがシーズン7遊んでるけど面白いよってポストしてたけど、まあ、ロットの言うことなので、あまり当てにはできないかなとは思いますけれどもね、特に、今現行のシーズン6ミッドパッチ当たった後も、 さらにバグがひどくなってるような状況ですから、ちょっと額面通りには受け取りにくいですね。さあ、10秒切りました。はい。
Hello, Diablo community. Welcome to another Diablo IV campfire chat with a creepy eyeball we were just talking about. This one is our patch 2.1 PTR
はい。パッチ 2.1.0 の、PTR の、キャンプファイアチャットになりますと。
I am joined here by Mr. Colin Feiner.
はい。コリン・ファイナーとチャールズ・ダン、それとあとアダム・フレッチャーですね。はい。まあ、割と、登場回数の比較的多いメンバーで、お送りすると、そういう形になりそうですね。あ、それとあと、アメリカの東海岸の方ですかね。アルバニーのスタジオの方に、
Diablo IV jackets as well. Look at this. Models. How are you, Dan? Hopefully you're good. And he's not sure if he can hear me. Oh, no. But either way, a few things that we do want to talk about before we actually do jump into everything. Obviously, PTR is coming out soon. We are doing this stream a little early this time, mainly because the Thanksgiving holiday is coming up here in the US. And so we are going to be talking about some of the contents before even the patch notes are ready. We do plan on having a blog immediately after this stream. So players can actually check out the blog and read a little bit more about what we talked about today.
配信の直後にブログポストが来るそうです。
For players to actually check out. So it'll be before the US holiday here. So everyone can
カイトユウさん、お、吉町だと。おはようございます。はい、今日もありがとうございます。アメリカ感謝祭の、休暇に入るわけですけれども、まあ、その都合もあって、少し早めに、キャンプファイアチャットをやることになりましたよ、っていう話ですね。
We're actually going to jump over to Mr. Dan Tangway in Albany to kind of walk us through.
アルバニーにいるダン・タングウェイ。さっきの人ですね。
Oh no. Dan can't currently hear.
あれ画面が切り替わらない。
Maybe we don't have satellites working or something like that. So instead, I guess we'll just start with classes first. Sure. So
クラスバランスかな
？Class changes that are coming with Season 7. I know we talked a little bit about this last week with Adam Jackson. Just a reminder, Spiritborn, expect that to be addressed for Season 7. And we will
はい、スピリットボーンのバグについて、対処されることも、覚悟しといてくださいと。
Some broader, more systemic updates that are happening that kind of affect all classes equally in a way. Yeah, so like I said, just
はい、クラスアップデート、ジェネラル、一般的なそのゲームのアップデート、まあ概要ですね。
I believe the first one up. Yeah, so Barbarian is definitely a class that we think a lot of the classes have been performing pretty well across the board. They're always a step under the Spiritborn, but Barbarian maybe a step and a half below, and so we're looking at a lot of buffs across the board for them here, specifically looking at some stuff with Hammer of the Ancients, buffing that number up here.
バーバリアン、多少のバフが必要だということで、ハンマーオブジエンシェント、
Now we're going to be giving you a bigger bonus, and when you have all of them active,
大槌ですかね、に、ちょっとバフを入れましたと。それに加えて、アースクエイクですね、の方にも、バフを若干加えましたと。15% くらいですかね。ってことは、底上げ、他のクラスを底上げする形にするのかな。他のクラスを底上げしつつ、スピリットボーンを、修正して下げると いうような形になるんでしょうかね。
Earthquakes just they increase the damage of all of them.
Yeah, it's a little bit less finicky too, right? Because now it lasts after the earthquake expires, or if you leave it.
Absolutely. So we think this would just be a much more comprehensive build overall. We've also got a new legendary that talks directly to earthquakes
新しいレジェンダリーですね。
Ups their damage and increases their fire, or turns it into fire damage. And
アースクエイクを、非属性、火属性、火炎属性のダメージに変えるための、決心だそうです。
Alright, let's move on to the sorceress.
The sorceress.
One of the key notes that we've noticed with sorceress over the whole lifespan of Diablo IV is that players often felt like they were pigeonholed into burning builds in particular. Firebolt enchantment is probably the most used enchantment by far.
はい、ファイアボルトはおそらく最もそのエンチャントメントで使われているスキルだと思うんだけれども。
Powerful build, powerful interactions, but we felt like that was making everything a little too homogenous. You felt like you had to do this in order to access a lot of these passives. And so we decided that we really want these burning synergies to really be benefiting builds that are dedicated to burning type builds, and not just ones who are splashing it in with Firebolt enchantment. And so with that in mind, we did a rework on the enchantment to increase the or remove the burning damage from the enchantment and change it over to this, which has a healing component to it. And then we also updated a lot of those burning passives to really play better in the dedicated fire-based builds, rather than being something that you just want to splash into everything.
Yeah, hopefully there's a lot more build variety.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is one of the main driving goals of a lot of our updates is increasing that build variety. So you don't feel like you have to take this checklist of mandatory things before moving on to the actual one for your build. So an example here on Barbarian Blaze, we've got bonus
ヒール回復ですね。回復を加えて使い方を変えたいということなのかな。うっちゃりさんおはようございます。ありがとうございます。今日も楽しんでいってください。
build, your meteor build, something that wants to do those big fire crits. Devouring Blaze is now even more valuable for those builds, and it's not something that you necessarily need to or feel compelled to splash in other builds. All right, on to the next one. We also did some updates for Ball Lightning. So,
ボールライトニングですね。
upgrades, like kind of these Mage's Ball Lightning and Wizard's Ball Lightning, were about stunning enemies or spawning some correcting energy with admittedly some kind of complex conditions. You had to jump through a lot of hoops to get these. One of the things we really like to do with a lot of these updates is simplify them down and streamline and really focus in on what the interesting factor is.
Yeah, it makes it a little bit more modular too, right? So there's more builds, the less sort of focus.
明治ボールライトニングとウィザードボールライトニングという2種類の3段階目のオプションですよね。はい。
All right, on to the next one. We've got some of the new uniques that we want to show off here on the Sork, talking about Ball Lightning. So this is actually something interesting we're doing this season where we're making 2 uniques that are in the same slot.
ボールライトニング用のユニークみたいですね。
Which turns Ball Lightning into a kind of like a bowling ball. Really, you send it forward, it goes pretty fast, and when it hits a target, it's going to explode and kind of splash outward. And I think this is really cool. It offers a switched up play style.
当たった瞬間、インパクトの瞬間に弾けるみたいですね。
If you pick the other unique, you can actually retain the old gravitational aspect. So we can go on and take a look at that one here in the next clip.
もう一つのクリップ。はい。オープンズカタリスト。オープンのカタリスト。
Updated that and kind of reworked the gravitational aspect so that now that functionality is built into this new unique and also has some additional bonuses to encourage this kind of playstyle. And obviously the gravitational aspect that used to do this has been reworked into a new cool effect that you'll be able to demo out on the PTR as well.
It's like a fun trade-off now, and sort of how you want to use ball lightning.
Yeah, it really helps it be a bit more build-defined.
ボールライトニングをどういう風に使いたいか、どういう風に遊びたいかっていうのに関していくつかオプションを作ったよっていうことのようですね。
This makes it a lot smoother to just be moving around and just keep on clicking that ball lightning, and you're not going to have to like stop like that, very short half-second stop to cast it. It just feels much smoother, and this is one that you really, this build is just wants to be on the move,
right? And
that encourages that. All right, so let's talk about the Druid next.
で、ドルイドですね。
This season, a lot of werewolf updates. Season of the werewolf.
今シーズンはウェアウォルフ、狼の方に、フォーカスしてみましたということですね。
Making that build come up to par.
Yeah, like pure werewolf, right? Not
pure
like
werewolf.
Mixing it with other things.
Yeah, a lot of times you saw some like rapid shape-shifting builds, and those are fun. Those are great, but pure werewolf wasn't quite hitting the mark, and so that's what a lot of our focus is. Let's take a look at some of these updates. So we've got updates to Shred, the main core skill for these werewolf builds. Previously, the Raging Shred upgrade was just a combo attack that applied some poisoning damage. So now it's going to still do that and apply a lot more poisoning damage, but it's also going to cause them to take even more poisoning damage for the next 5 seconds. So this is,
毒ダメージを、上増しした感じですね。
all the other poisoning damage that you've applied through something like rabies.
レイビードルイドやなんかで、
Still Boulder is a skill that we saw a good opportunity to improve on it.
効果的だろうと。
Two upgrades on Boulder in the past, the two choices, and they were both fairly similar. They both dealt with critical strike chance or critical strike damage, and we thought that was an opportunity to rework one of them to give it a different identity. And basically, the identity was Poison Boulder. Like just a giant ball of poison. Yeah. What does that look like, or what does that do?
Changing the damage type always helps sort of branch out and make it feel really different.
Yeah, and we got some really sweet visuals for it too. I'm not sure if we have a video on that. I think we'll just have to rely on that in the PTR.
そうですね。
People will see it on the PTR, but it's got some cool visuals associated with it.
Yeah, and so that one will be very cool. Definitely check that one out.
This one I'm very excited about because Bloodhowl, as we see, has always just generated spirit, but now.
Yeah, it was always just generating some spirit,
ジェネレーターとしてのそのブラッドハウルはジェネレーターになるだけではなく、
That was an area that we felt, hey, we want to really reward you for staying in the werewolf form and really committing to that identity and just making sure that felt like an appropriate payoff, and this is one of the areas that we're doing that in.
25% のダメージ、追加ダメージ、ですね、乗算のダメージが、入る、シフトするまでの間に、入るようになると。
It was fine, but it wasn't too enticing. But now with the new update here, you actually still do more damage just all the time. And depending on how far you're traveling for Shred, you're going to do some bonus hits. And it looks so cool. Your werewolf is dashing across the screen and then just doing this like multi-hit kind of attack. And so if you're really close, you're just going to get maybe one additional strike. But if you're at this further distance, as you see in this clip, you're going to get the full 4 hits. So it's really about positional gameplay a bit more than it was in the past. And you get very heavily rewarded for it when you do kind of execute that properly.
That's awesome. And it's going to be really great to like
距離感の問題なのかな。
across the map, which I know movement is always
距離が、しっくり合うと、4ヒットフルで、全部当たるよ。
Very cool.
Yeah. It's always great when we can inject like changing how you play also, right? Because you can imagine launching into a group of enemies, then picking out specific targets that you really want to launch to, and that's how you optimize that build combat-wise.
Absolutely. This is one of my favorite ones in this patch, actually. Big fan of a lot of these Druid updates. Aspect of Wolf's Rain. So this is a combo kind of legendary, combining the powers of Hurricane and your Wolf companions. So when you cast Hurricane,
これは狼もハリケーンを展開するということでしょうかね。
companion-based builds that already have this wolf pack of 5 wolves following them around. Now your hurricane affects all of them.
狼もまあやや小さめですけど、半径小さめですけれども、同時にハリケーンを展開してでダメージを与えると。
Alright, moving on to Rogue. So this is one that
でローグですね。
Clone has been probably the rogue skill that I would say it maybe wasn't quite hitting the mark compared to most other skills. And that was for a variety of reasons. And not to get too technical here on the details, but for a lot of the effects that that you have with your legendaries and your passives and those kind of things, historically Shadow Clone behaved inconsistently with those. It wouldn't necessarily pick up all of the bonuses, it wouldn't trigger all of the effects, and the end result was basically that your Shadow Clone dealt a whole lot less damage than you did. You thought, hey, I'm hitting for millions, and my Shadow Clone's hitting for like thousands, right?
Yeah.
And so we really looked at that comprehensively and thought, okay, we need to kind of rethink how Shadow Clone works across the board to really bring it up to par, to make it behave the way you expect. And then also extend that
要は火力が足りてないっていうことみたいですけれども。
your Druid companions and so on. So we did basically a rework of that entire system. And the long and short of it is that they should just work a whole lot better going forward in this season, where they're going to trigger all of your lucky hit effects. They're going to interact with all of your damage modifiers and multipliers that they previously were inconsistently working with. So just one example here, a very simple example. You've got Wind Striker's aspect. This is a very simple legendary that just says, hey, when you critically strike, gain some movement speed. Now in the past, that was only when your player
そうですね、フールさん。召喚タグ付きは全部幸運の一撃発動できるようになるってさらっと書いてるなと。
But now all of that will work. So your companions or your summons or your Shadow Clone critically strikes and you have Wind Strikers, now your character gets that bonus.
It's huge.
Yeah, I really can't overstate this, like how many new interactions and synergies this unlocks with not just Shadow Clone, but all of the summons in general.
ちょっといじってみないとわかんないですね。
Shadow Clone in particular, we've got a new unique item.
シャドウクローン用のユニーク、新しいユニークですね。
The effect here works with mobility skills and your shadow imbuement. Once again, kind of playing up that combo aspect. So all of your mobility skills are going to always be shadow imbued with some bonus potency. So they're going to do some more damage. And whenever you damage an elite or boss with a mobility skill, there's a chance to trigger an instant free shadow imbuement explosion. So those of you who like playing shadow step builds, one of my favorite ones with Rogue, just like Adam had said before about jumping around the screen with werewolves, you can do that with shadow step now too. And you're just going to be getting a lot of those resets and kills much quicker as you leap out of shadows, trigger a shadow imbuement explosion, and then move on.
シャドウエクスプロージョン、シャドウ属性でのその爆発ですよね。それを
If you've ever tried to use caltrops, it can be a struggle sometimes where your character would leap backwards and if you wouldn't go in the right direction, wouldn't hit the enemies.
鉄菱でしたっけ？日本語名。
To just basically be very similar to the smoke grenade skill, where you just pick a point on the screen, your character throws it, and it just goes where you point it.
後方に後方にジャンプする動作がなくなったということみたいですね。
Thank effing God. I was like, oh my God, please. So yeah, I'm excited for that.
Caltrop should be so much more usable now, and we think
ずっと使いやすくなったよ。
All right, on to the Necromancer. So Necromancer,
Necromancer.
improved itemization and updates to the overpower synergies, specifically the Rathma's Vigor key passive. So previously it would just give you
重要パッシブのラスマスビガー、日本語名なんだかわからないですけれども。
We definitely felt like these pure blood-based overpower builds were just not quite hitting that mark, and just pumping the power into these pure builds through the Rathma's Vigor key passive, we think is going to be very helpful to make these builds really shine. On to the next, we've got one of the new uniques. So similar to what we did with the sorcerer.
ナイアさん、おはようございます。気がついたら時間過ぎてたということで、まだ、序盤の方なので、クラスバランスの変更の話ですね。をやっています。それの一番最後のネクロのところですね。今出ているのは、そのネクロ用の新しい、ユニーク、みたいですね。で、ブラッドウェーブが、敵を外に押し出すのではなくって自分の方に寄せてくるような動きにしたと。
Now the alternative is Indria's memory, where it still shoots the blood wave forward, and then at the end of its path, it will trap the targets in a bone prison. So this is a unique that is very much about combining blood and bone. So a little bit less of the pure blood and much more about combining the two. Now, additionally, you see we're using some bone spears here, or should I say blood spears, because that is what they now become.
ブラッドウェーブで敵を、遠ざけた後、そのまま、ボーンプリズンで閉じ込めるという、一連の動きですね。で、これは、ブラッドスピアという言い方してますけれども、ボーンスピアのブラッド版、ブラッドスキル版みたいですね。
Really makes a really cool build that I think synergizes very nicely.
Yeah, it's awesome.
怪盗優さん、シャドウステ靴のユニークだと機動力の決心を入れる場所がアミュレットになっちゃう。はいはいはいはいはいはいはい。で、チャージが増える決心がないと、クールダウンが3秒回復する、効果が出るのにラグがあって、回転速度が遅くなると。なるほど。そこら辺どう考えてるかですね。あるいは考えてないかですね。ちょっと気になるところではありますね。確かに。
Yeah, we do think that kind of our target there is closer to where the other 5 classes are.
ナヤさん、ボーンプリズンの実用性は上がった感じかな。
And then try to power creep the whole game. We'd like to make sure we make some small improvements everywhere else to the underperforming builds and those ones that don't have enough love, and then get Spiritborn back down to a more healthy spot. And so with that in mind, one of the biggest power points rather of on the Spiritborn was the Rod of Kapaleki here. This one is the one that converts your core skills into basic skills and it used to do reduced damage based on vigor cost, and admittedly, the calculations there were kind of complex.
バグを直したのとナーフしたのと。
They will just gain the bonus critical strike damage. It will be substantially less. Previously, it was 1 to 3%. Now it'll be down to 0.1 to 0.5 per point of vigor there. We think this will bring it to a much healthier spot. Retain the core fantasy and the core build implications of this item. It just won't be pushing quite the same trillions of damage that we were seeing before.
We also have some of the issues called out here at the above, like viscous shield and things like that, scaling in unintended ways that were just way outside of our expectations.
Yeah, definitely some unintended kind of bugged interactions that maybe double dipping or scaling too high.
意図していないバグによる莫大なダメージを修正しますよと。
Additionally, we've got new aspects. Of course, being a class in Diablo IV, you're going to be getting new content every season. So we've got a new legendary aspect here, the aspect of Endless Talons, that causes you a Razor Wings to increase all of your Eagle skill damage, and Razor Wing critical strikes will grant even more stacks. So you can really stack that up. It stacks up to 50%. That's a whole lot. So you really want to be spamming out these Razor Wings and getting those crits to stack this up as fast as possible.
Yeah, and this goes back to like just the prior slide where we talked about how Razor Wings and Centipede builds are getting some extra love in this specific season, which were more so underutilized in Season 6. So with Season 7, players will be able to see these new legendary aspects, of course, and then and how they actually tie back in with some of the changes that we're doing for those builds.
Absolutely. All right, we've got some updates to some of the underused uniques as well.
ユニーク、あんまり使われてない方のユニークのアップデートみたいですね。
That was a little too long given the pace of combat in our game, and especially compared to some of the other options at the unique slot, the ring slot. So we've reduced that down to every 4 seconds. You'll spawn a pestilent swarm.
ケペケペが至るところに、コアスキルと、基本スキル属性を、つけるから、そこが変わらないなら何かしらおかしいことにはなると思うと。
All right. So let's talk a little bit about some of the broader updates that affects all classes. So the one I'm excited about here is the ultimate updates. So in the previous season, we introduced skill ranks on ultimates, right? So you can now rank up your ultimate up to rank 5, and that was good, gave you some cooldown reduction, some damage. But now, when you actually fully invest in it up to that rank 5, every ultimate in the game is going to get a new rank 5 bonus. So for example, here on Lacerate, we've got at rank 5, Lacerate's damage is going to be increased by 40%.
これは奥義スキルですね。奥義スキルで、
So you can see on the left, Lacerate at rank 1 is doing about 38,000 damage, but you rank it up to 5, and it goes crazy high up to 119,000 damage because it's now getting that critical strike damage scalar. And so if you really want to build a dedicated Lacerate build as kind of your core damaging effect, this is going to be a great way to build around it and a good reward for investing all those extra skill points into it.
Definitely. I love to see us add more things that incentivize you to actually put some points into skills.
Yeah. So often, sometimes you'd see if you just wanted the access to the utility of the ultimate, hey, it's fine to put in 1 point, right? You get 1 point, you get the utility, maybe you get some buff from it. But if you really want to invest in it, we want to make sure that investment in those skill ranks feels meaningful. And we think these rank 5 bonuses on ultimates in particular is going to be a really good way to pay off those ultimate builds.
Definitely.
All right, we've also got some new
だいぶそのスケーリングを変えて、ポイントをその奥義スキルにポイントを入れることによって、だいぶダメージスケーリングを優位にというか体感的に分かるように
We've also got the Ring of
したということみたいですね。
which says casting your ultimate skill will increase your damage by 8 to 18%, so a little bit less than the Vehement Brawlers, but it stacks up to 10 times, so you get way more.
30% から18% と下げたんですけれども、これを累積できるようにして、最大 180% まで増やせるように変えましたよ。これは
All right, we've also done some updates to the rune words. So rune words, Vessel of Hatred feature.
ルーンワードにもちょっとした調整を入れました。
Some build variety, and we're going to add some new runes here and update some of the old ones. So all of the invocation runes have overflow. So the cost of many of them have also been adjusted to allow you to proc this overflow effect when you generate more offering than needed much more often. And then also the ritual runes, the ones that generate the offering, some of them have been redesigned to have some larger potential moments of this overflow. So an example here on the Seer rune, this generates a ton of offering, 300 offering at once. And you get that by casting 5 skills. But then, instead of just casting 5 skills and then generating all of it and then casting 5 again instantly, we've added in this exhausted period for 3 seconds. So you can get that 300 offering at once, but then you got to wait 3 seconds before you start building up those stacks again.
Yeah, so it's like getting like large buckets every like couple seconds instead of offering now with these.
クールダウンみたいなものなのかな
To kind of make sure that, hey, we can give you this strong moment of power, but then it is followed by a little bit of a weaker moment where you can't generate that, rather than every rune always just being a steady amount. We would like to have those peaks and valleys. I really think that leads to more interesting moments of the gameplay.
Yeah, it's about potency versus frequency.
Right.
So you get really strong effects, but you can't do it as often.
Right. And that'll play right into the updates with a lot of
強い
overflow
効
to make sure that
果
when you
の
do
ものに
overflow,
関しては
it feels really rewarding.
そんな頻繁に
So let's talk about
発動
some
で
of
き
the
ないよう
other
に
runes. Yeah.
したってことでしょうかね。
Yeah, so we've got 3 new rune words here. The Nagu rune, a legendary rune that will gain 100 offering. As long as
フールさん、
you're
その
maintaining a
3秒
summon.
の
And
疲
so,
労
as I
状
kind
態
of
です
alluded
け
to
れど
earlier
も
with the shadow clone section, summon is our new
クールダウンとは別のクールダウンみたいな感じでしょうか
Yeah, it's pretty
ね。
self-explanatory, but that includes things
ちょっと
like
私もよくわかりません。
Druid companions, sorcerer conjurations, rogue shadow clones, and even barbarian ancients from some of your effects. Call of the Ancients and some of the legendaries that summon those are all summoned. Igni rune will generate 25 offering, but it stores up offering every 0.3 seconds. So you're actually generating about 75 offering per second, roughly. And you actually cash it in by casting a non-basic skill to get that offering. So as long as you're out there kind of spamming your basic skill, you're going to be kind of banking up this offering. And then when you cast the non-basic, you cash all in, you probably trigger the rune it's connected to, you get a big overflow, you get a big moment of power there. And finally, we've got the Chak rune that requires 20 offering rather, and this will invoke Druid's Lightning Bolt. That's one of those, it's not the core skill, but Lightning Bolt is kind of that.
ちょっとオーバーフロー絡みの話が今一つちょっと見えづらいですね。
Yeah, so enable those kind of builds to really tap into that effect.
Awesome. Lots of runes.
Yeah.
Lots of rune word updates. Lots of changes.
ちょっとこの後、ブログポストですか、配信の後にブログポストがあるということなので、気になる方は、ルーに関してブログポストの方をチェックしてみてください。ちょっと、オーバーフロー絡みのところを、ちゃんと訳す自信ないですね。ちょっとここ私。
Before we go live with patch 2.1, we can end up making any feedback changes based off of community feedback. So lots of cool stuff. Thank you so much for walking us through all the different class changes and everything.
新しいルーンが増えるってことは、これを使って作る新しいウーバーですぞ。ウーバー出てくるのかどうなのか。
Dan was just like staring blankly at the camera, and I was like,
yes, I was.
But Dan is actually going to be talking about all the new content that's coming in patch 2.1.
はい、アルバニー、ニューヨークの州都ですね。ブリザードアルバニーのスタジオの中ということだと思います。
This PTR for patch 2.1 is a PTR of a couple firsts at this point. This is going to be the first time that we're bringing the seasonal realm to a PTR. So what does this mean?
シーズンラルム、シーズン領域。
We want to be able to get all of your feedback on this content. It's pretty important for us to, like Adam was saying, really have those iteration cycles where y'all are able to test and, show what's working and what isn't. This is also going to be the first time since season 2 that we're bringing back seasonal character powers. So if you remember in season 2,
シーズン
Season of
2 以
Blood,
来
they were
の、
vampire powers, and you slotted them into your sanguine circle.
あー、キャラクターに、その、何か力を、付与する、久々のシーズンになるということみたいですね。
really dig into that right now and tease out what y'all can play in a couple weeks. So
ウィ
witchcraft
ッチクラフト。
enables you as a practitioner to call upon the power of the swamp to do your bidding. And so you've met some witches before in the game, and you're going to meet some more in the coming season. But before I really dive into witchcraft, we got to talk about your enemies. Now, your enemies of this season are going to be called the Head Rotten. Now, the Head Rotten are abominations that spawn from the Tree of Whispers. And you're going to slay them and collect what we call Restless Rot. And this is going to be our currency for the season.
またシーズン専用のカレンシー作るんですか？あんま
And these altars are pretty important to you learning your witchcraft. And so you're going to travel to an altar. You're going to make an offering of restless rot, and that's going to enable you to learn the witchcraft.
ウィッチクラフトを、ラーニングするのに、
take what was best from a lot of these styles of menus
はい、こういう祭壇めいたものが必要になると。
And the result is this witchcraft menu that you can see in front of you. And so equipping is going to be super simple. You've got an inventory on the bottom, and then you're going to drag or otherwise move that power to one of the slots up top. And you're going to have 5 normal slots, 5 normal powers you can equip at any point, and 1 unique power for really special witchcraft that you can find.
5種類のノーマルパワーと、1種類のユニークパワーを、装備することができると。
So again, we're streamlining the process to, make it easy for players to equip and upgrade their witchcraft. Now, obviously, it wouldn't be a season
ウィッチクラフトはアップグレード可能なんですね。つまり、そのシーズン3の、あれと近いのかな。吸血力。ただ、その、
but in order to advance the Coven's favor, you actually need to complete whispers. And completing those whispers will increase your rank and allow you to unlock rewards, including items and materials and things like that. In addition, new to this season, you're going to also unlock at certain ranks new witchcraft. And then you will have new things you can learn from those altars. And then, because everyone loves it, we're bringing back the Resplendent Spark as well. So that's going to be at the end of your Coven's favorite rank. And of course, the Resplendent Spark nowadays can be used from crafting, a random unique to actually targeting uniques using a lot of the runes that you can earn in the game.
っていうことみたいですけれども。
All right, one last little thing with respect to witchcraft. So we wanted to try out something a little bit different. And so we've also created several powers that are lost to these witches, the Coven of the Swamp. And so those you can only find by traveling out in the world and discovering forgotten altars. And these forgotten altars will allow you to learn these lost powers. And we just thought we'd try something a little bit different here. And let us know what you think about it. Now, let's talk about some of the witchcraft itself.
ウィッチクラフト。なんか毎回怪しげな言葉が出てきて、その言葉から、ウィッチクラフトはまだマシな方だと思いますけれども、言葉からその、何をするものなのかっていうイメージがつきづらいんですよね。これがウィッチクラフトの一つになるみたいです。 ポイズンフロッグサーバント、まあ、毒ガエルの、手下ですね。なんかどんどんなんかやはり
Also another favorite at this point.
ディアブロ3っぽくなってきますね。
Vengeful Servant, as the name implies, is another servant like the frog, and this one will absorb damage and then rush enemies. And then last but not least, we've got one of those lost witchcraft powers I was telling you about. And this is Paragon.
こういういろいろな、まあ、クラフト、技を、得ることができるみたいですね。だから、やっぱり、シーズン3の吸血力、どちらかというと、それに近いのかな。
Sucks everything into it in a swirling dervish of fish and destruction. So, yeah, that's a peek at some of the witchcraft powers you're going to be able to play with soon. But what good are powers if we aren't offering you some new activities within the season to participate in? And so these come in the form of headhunts. Now, headhunts are a whisper-driven activity. And so the tree is searching for these head rotten. The tree wants you to eliminate these head rotten. And so it's going to help you by highlighting areas
ささやきの木が、ヘッドロットンというものを、探していると、求めていると。
Similar to Helltides. They're going to feature a number of all new whispers mixed in with some existing ones. This was an opportunity for our team to try out some new whispers and really kind of tell a little bit of a story each time you're going out on a headhunt, because whispers offer us that opportunity. Now, completing whispers has a chance of spawning a head rotten boss. And the head rotten bosses are the things you're really going to be looking out for, because those are going to give you some additional rewards I'm going to tell you about. Delivering a head rotten boss's head to the Tree of Whispers enables you to earn occult gems. Let's talk about occult gems. Now, we're pretty excited about these. Occult gems are special socketables that have unique effects.
これソケットに埋められるの？
So, they can only be slotted in the jewelry slot.
宝飾品、まあ、つまりアミュレットと指輪の、ソケットにしか埋められない、ジェムだそうです。で、シーズン、もちろんシーズン中にしか使えないし、シーズンが終わってしまえば、消えてしまう、そういうものだそうです。
So all of these occult gems have defense built into them, so that, really you're getting a bonus above and beyond, those gems that I just described. And so here are some examples of them. First up, we've got the Elder Sigil. This is going to boost your damage whenever you hex enemies. So if you're leaning into certain types of hexes you like using, Elder Sigil may be a good fit for you. Killing Wind.
オレンジというか、そういうランクをつけないと気が済まないのかな。
Specking out with Eldritch powers. So if you equip 3 or more Eldritch powers, then slotting a Killing Wind into, say, one of your rings might benefit you quite a bit.
トモハイドさん起きれました。出遅れてしまいましたが、ということでおはようございます。楽しんでいってください。
An aura and afflict other enemies with those. So each time you do that, not only do you have a chance to proc that Piranado I talked about before, but you're going to increase the damage that you output per affliction. So you can kind of get a sense that the occult gems are providing you even more incentives for, creating a certain type of build. And we are just really excited to see what kind of combinations y'all come up with. I think,
まあ、どういう、コンビネーションが、発見されるかっていうのに関しても、ちょっと関心を持っていると。
So we thought, well, we should, take some of the quality of life feedback we've heard from players.
怪盗優さん、青と黄色は、ティアが上がると勝手に素材になるバグがあると見ました。これを使うと結構体積きつそうだけど、そうですね。
We've changed the layout a little bit to make it a little more convenient to navigate and move the waypoint so that it's just quicker to get to the Tree of Whispers to turn in things. But sometimes,
もし体勢がきつくなりそうだった場合は、おそらくミッドシーズンパッチかなんかで、マリグナントの心臓の時のような感じで、体勢が同時に入るようになるんじゃないですかね。
you hit your inventory limit, you'll probably want to go back to town. But in the moment, when you're in a flow, you can go to the Raven of the Tree, get your cash, and then keep fighting. And then finally, we felt like we wanted to expand the rewards a little bit more for the Tree of Whispers. So we've added ancestral caches. It's a pretty low probability of getting one, but they're there. And these guarantee you getting an ancestral item from a cache. So obviously you see this pop up.I have a feeling you're probably going to select it.
アンセストラルコレクション、それキャッシュみたいなのができるのか。これは、それアイテムが、なかなか手に入らないっていう不満に対する回答の一つなのかもしれないですね。
I'm super excited for all the Tree of Whisper updates. I know a lot of people in chat are, especially with the Raven not having to go back to the Tree of Whispers every single time, being able to turn in Grim Favors right there through the Raven. On top of that, also just the rework of the zone, so everything's a little bit closer. You don't have to walk all the way across, to walk all the way back to the waypoint, or to get to the vendors and everything. So there's a lot of big changes with that. And please do choose the ancestral cache.
Yes,
like,
so powerful.
Why would you not? Yeah.
And I think it's important to remember we added the ability to favorite waypoints as part of Season 6 or of the last patch that we did. So it's super helpful with that witch time.
シーズン6の時に、ウェイポイント、任意のウェイポイントに、任意のウェイポイントをそのデフォルトのその跳躍先に、指定できるようにしたので、まあそういうのも活用してほしいと。
Players can hear more about kind of like the origins of all, like what we've been kind of talking about here with this story with Diablo 4. So thank you again, Dan, for walking us through all the content that's coming with Season 7. And of course, last but not least, we do want to talk about some big quality of life changes. One really, really big one that we're really excited to talk about. And Mr. Colin Feiner will talk and walk us through everything.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. So most of these are sort of systemic updates, so I'll talk through them. Paragon migration is more just a reminder on how the new Paragon system works. All of the Paragon experience that you've earned in a season is actually at the end of Season 6 going to be added to your Eternal Realm Paragon. So what that means is, if you're Paragon level 230 on a season, all of that 230 worth of experience is going to get added to your Eternal, which probably is going to level up your Eternal Paragon. And I mentioned this because we added the really cool Soul Stone. I kept calling it the Vessel of Hatred Crystal, but it's a Soul Stone. That really cool Soul Stone that you get at Paragon level 300, you can actually earn that on Eternal. So if you're not willing to sort of put in hundreds of hours to get that in a season, you can work your way there on the Eternal Realm as you sort of cash in these seasons. So we think that's going to feel pretty good.
It's going to be really nice as you're like playing through multiple seasonal characters, and then eventually you'll end up just getting enough XP to actually earn those rewards at level 300 Paragon. So that's actually, it's not like I have to have it in this season or something like that. You probably end up getting it in a couple seasons. So you play pretty extensively and you level up your Paragon.
Yeah, definitely. The second one here is now
パラゴンポイントですね。それをそのエターナルの方でその重ねて達成していくと、そういう
It's not exactly perfect because we wanted to maintain the sort of specialness of a 4GA with a perfect
ことに関する話だったみたいですね。別にそのシーズン中に全部 カンストしなくてもいいんだよっていう。
Yeah. It's always great getting a 4GA and then like 1%.
Yeah. That always just feels bad. You never want to be comparing like, oh, I got a 4GA. Well, my 1GA1 is maybe better because it has a better unique roll. That wasn't a moment we felt was really enticing. So we wanted to make sure that the more GAs you get, just the better the item is comprehensively, just better.
Yeah, absolutely. So that should help quite a bit. And then I'm going to talk about one thing previously on that, which is
はい、それアイテムだね。
They are now going to, when an ancestral item drops, it's going to drop the top end of the legendary aspect roll. So if you think in season 6,
それアイテムがドロップするときは必ずその化身のトップレベルのランクを落とすようにしますと。
Lots of conspiracy theories on Reddit of people going like, hey, I think like my Codex of Power is not getting updated correctly or something like that. And we totally understand. Like there was a lot of confusion behind it. We admit that on our end. And this just makes it easier and better for players in being able to grab it. It's not Colin behind the scenes on a computer like it was. It actually was. He was literally just like making sure you got the lowest aspect rolls or anything like that. But no,
grind harder.
So that most definitely will address a lot of the confusion there, as well as just make it better for players overall.
Yeah, definitely. And then the second point here is we've pretty substantially increased the ancestral drop rate across the board. They're not going to be raining from the sky, but it's definitely pretty substantially increased that we think is just going to level up all the different activities in the game, and that should just feel a lot better. We don't want to go too far where they're no longer special, but we thought that we were a little bit too conservative on our first swing.
And this will affect all torment tiers, right? Not just tier.
なるほど。それの化身は加減が下すぎると思っていたけれども、それを大幅に上げるってことなのかなと。
We saw that gems were dropping a little too frequently, constantly getting stuck on the ground, and players were capped on them. So we are doing a pass to reduce them overall. But to compensate, we're actually adding a sync for them. So you're going to be able to take gem fragments and craft random legendary amulets and random legendary rings. Those all obviously have a chance to be ancestral once you get into the torment. So it's a really nice way for us to sort of make sure that you're never hitting a point where you just have so many gem fragments. They're worthless, right?
Awesome. Yeah.
And then the next one I think is going to be
ジェムフラグメントのシンクですね。使い道なんかも徐々に考えていかないといけない問題ですよね。
And in the past, when you hit level 15, you'd get a quest where you had to go and help out a mage to find a lost tome. So for players who have already completed that, you are going to, if you do need to log into that character first to kind of unlock it across your account. But once you've done that, any subsequent sorceress that you make, once you hit level 15, you're going to immediately unlock that first enchantment slot. And then once you hit level 30, you'll unlock the second one. Now, for every class, the exact level is going to be different. It depends on when that would normally unlock, but you won't have to go through the whole quest line to do so.
クラス専用クエストを必須にしないってことですかね。もちろんクエストを進行自分で任意でクエストにチャレンジすることはできるけれども必須にはしないようにするということですかね。レベル15になったらそのクラスの特殊機能、ソーサレスだったらエンチャントメントを自動的に解放するような形にするということでしょうか。来ましたね、アーマリー、武器庫。
So, Colin, want to go through it all?
Absolutely, yeah. This one was a really niche request. We had to dive super deep into the forum. So that one guy who asked for this is for you. I'm just kidding. This has been a super hot requested feature. We're excited to bring it to everybody. So everybody's going to get this update. Armory is going to allow you to save builds. It's going to save all your equipment, all of your skills, all of your paragon, all your paragon glyphs. You can even name it. And what this really allows you to do is be a lot more flexible in the end game, right? So if you're really liking your fireball build, but you got this really sweet ball lightning unique.
はい。ビルドを切り替えられるようにするための、システムですね。装備、それとスキル、それとパラゴン。はい。そういったようなものを、保存して、で、それを切り替えられるようにすると。
And that's really important to know because we're just saving the equipment, right? Yeah. So you'll want to know if you're going to modify this item that it would affect any of the loadouts that are currently using this item.
Yeah, if you take a legendary and say change the imprinted aspect on it, you know it's still part of that build, so it might not be the right one. So you do probably want to get multiple sets of gear if you want to be building this up, but it's so much easier to swap between them, so much easier to explore all of the new build possibilities that we introduce every season with the new items and updates.
Absolutely. And it's in all the main towns, it's even in the training rooms, which is very nice. And it's important to note that we will swap it from anywhere.
トレーニングルーム、やなんかで使うときにも有用だよねっていう。
It'll just it's auto-magically does it, which is really nice. It makes it as easy as possible for players to be able to really utilize the feature, which I think is great.
Cool. So yeah, we're super excited. We're really leaning into the flexibility. That's why we've just removed a lot of the cost to switch around, and we think this should open up. You know, if you're playing a druid, you don't have to go make another druid or go through 300 clicks to change out your paragon. So
yeah, and I think one thing I do want to note is because this will be in PTR, we really need people to actually test it. It's a brand new feature.
はい。新しい機能なので、PTR でこれ、きちっと、テストしてもらいたいものの一つになりますと。
Give us feedback. It's something that we're going to continuously iterate. One thing I do want to call out is in PTR, it won't have controller support. It will have controller support when we do launch it with
PTR の時点ではコントローラーサポートはまだ実装されないされてない状態でPTR 開始するようです。
Of changes coming for season 7. Obviously, all the class changes, the ultimate changes that Charles talked about, the balance and items are related to that. New rune words, reworked rune words as well. We have, of course, all the season 7 stuff that Dan talked about with the witchcraft powers, and of course our new gems, the occult gems. So we want players to actually jump in and try those out, and with all the quality of life fixes that we do have. So I know we do want to jump into Q&A before we PTR. I forgot. Sorry, I forgot about PTR updates. I can't even follow my own agenda that's like sitting here on a piece of paper, Adam.
一応5時に終わらせようというそういう気概は感じますね。
As you guys remember, with 2.1, the prior PTRs, we did character copies before, or account copies from your main accounts. Things are going to be a little different for patch 2.1. This is way better for players. If you guys remember back with even the patch 2.0 PTR, we actually did an account copy, and it was like weeks and weeks in advance, and people were like, whoa, this is like my barb from like, you know, it feels like yesterday.
以前の PTR で、これ何週間前の俺のキャラだよ、みたいなことが起こったと。
So with patch 2.1 PTR, there will be a kind of a new button on the UI where you'll be able to
はい。このボタンですね。
to your PTR account. So it'll take all your characters from your normal account and move them over. There are a few caveats we do want to mention though, is that
で、ここからその現時点でのそのキャラクターのデータをコピーできるように変えましたよ。いうことみたいですね。ちなみにアーマリーなんですけれども、ディアブロ3の時は、装備品が消えるというバグがかつて出たことがあります。なので、きっちりテストして、その手のバグは潰しておきたいですよね。はい。
But it is just a caveat that we do want to mention for players, but it does allow for way more flexibility of being able to carry that stuff over.
Definitely.
There we go. But new additions for the boosts and that we have for PTR. Obviously, we'll end up having the new unique items within the character boost that will be available in Season 7 PTR. We'll have, witchcraft powers, the witchcraft progression items that we had talked about earlier as well. So those will be all part
この
of
ウ
the
ィッ
PTR
チ
boost.
ク
So
ラ
it
フ
gives
ト
you
が
guys the
シー
tools
ズン
of
要
being
素
able
に
to
つ
test
ながる
everything
部
and getting
分
us
み
feedback
たいです
for anything that you guys
ね。
want to change before the season
それとあ
7.
とシーズン
and
7
patch
の、
1 actually.
新しいユニークアイテム。
Now we can go into Q&A.
はい で
I do wanna,
Q&A です
call
ね。
out quickly, just a reminder that we will have a blog up immediately after the stream for PTR. Patch notes will be next Wednesday. Again, this is
パッチノートは、来週水曜日だそうです。
for PTR. And then PTR is planning on starting on December 3rd. So players will be able to jump into PTR then. Of course, it is just PC BattleNet, just easier for us and more flexibility for us to be able to do updates and everything from our end for PTR. But I know we have a question teed up. So if you have questions, please put them in chat. And we will get those, we'll try to address as many as possible for the end of the stream. I have to reach over. There's a plant here that no one can see. But will all the PTR content be available on day one? Is a question that
最初の PTR 初日にすべての PTR コンテンツが、使えるようになるのかという質問ですね。
Yeah, we did split it out. We will say that all the PTR content will be available day one, so players can jump in.
答えは、一言で言うと Yes だそうです。
Immediately with day one, whenever they need to, so shouldn't be a problem. Jumping into some questions, Small Petting Zoo. I know Small Petting Zoo. They're a person that plays a lot of companion druid.
I would imagine based on the name.
So they're asking, will there be fixes to Storm and Werewolf tags given to Druid Wolves by the item Storm's Companion?
Yes.
They have never functioned, would more than double the damage of the build.
Yes, actually, as part of that comprehensive update that I mentioned to summons across the game, I did take a pass to look at specifically updating how the Wolves interact with Storm's Companion. And now, whenever they're imbued with a lightning from Storm's Companion, they do count as lightning skills. And because not to get too technical, but because the way the damage is calculated and attributed, it should also work with all the things that say, hey, when you deal lightning damage, do something special. Your lightning wolves are going to be triggering and interacting with all those events.
属性の問題みたいですね。お連れの、狼たちが、ちょっとすいません。
Because during Vessel of Hatred and the tree seem to be on good terms. Dan, I don't know if you want to answer this or if you want me to answer it. Up to you.
Yeah, so I'll say, first off, we're not going to get too deep of an answer. We're going to reveal more about the story as we get closer to the release of Season 7.
詳細、シーズン要素に関しては、シーズンが近くなってから、もっと近くなってから、徐々に、公開していくように、するつもりだよ。
Cool. You'll hear more soon. Again, we plan on doing a more grandiose reveal of Season 7 content and the story as we get closer to the release. So,
キース・ジャレットさん、初見ですと。ありがとうございます。今回のスピボーやポーションのバグの件を学んで、下手にシーズン要素を入れずに各色のアップデートとプレイ環境のクオリティアップだけを優先した1シーズンを重大なバランスブレイクを起こさずに走り切る経験を積んでほしい。要はシーズン6みたいな感じですかね、イメージとしては。あれに近い、それをもうちょっと、ステーブルにするような感じの、そういうシーズンを1シーズン作ってもいいんじゃないかと、そういうご意見ですかね。面白いと思います。どうぞお気軽に、コメントしてください。
Like stacking items. This is from Marwan Gaming. Any plans on the amount that you can stack, like items, potions, like potions, keys, and runes. Wow, I can't read. Any updates, or are we looking?
スタックできるアイテムに、はい、ボス素材とか、もうちょっとスタックできてもいいんじゃないのとか、そういう意見があるのは分かってるよと認識しているよと。
There's an opportunity for maybe pets collecting loot a little bit faster. Anything on the screen for players?
はい、ペットがもうちょっとその素材を収集するのに素早く動くとかそういうことはないのかい
？As far as the pets, no plans at the moment. I know we've done a big pass on a lot of things to essentially make sure that like when a rare item drops in Torment, it's just going to get auto salvaged. So we do try and essentially make a lot more of the loot just auto pick upable.
直近ではないけれども継続的にそういう問題は見続けていくよ。
Is there any plans for maybe adjustments to Ravens in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. Ravens, one of the three companions compared to the wolves and the vine creeper, which I think are often a bit more of the marquee ones in the companion builds, at least as they currently are. That's something we're definitely aware of, and going forward, when we look to make new effects for these companion builds, I think Ravens might be, maybe the next one we start looking at, but nothing I can commit to firmly at this point.
この時点で、何か、明言できることはないけれども、そういうレイブンがその新しいそういう、機能ですね、を、新しいその、召喚ドルイドのその、中心要素として、設計されるというかデザインされる、そういう可能性はもちろんあるよ。
And separately, will saved items for Armory builds have like maybe an icon or something associated to them to kind of like call them out that they are part of a saved build?
Yeah, so when you do save a loadout, we favorite all of those items. So just automatically that happens.
No mistaken, like, oh, crap.
Yeah, you'd have to unfavorite it, then sell it, and then at that point it's like, well, it's sort of on you. And then the second part is, yes, there is a little icon that does indicate that, hey, this is part of an armory.
Cool. So yeah, you know that like, hey, this is part of a build. Don't mess with it. Don't accidentally unfavorite it or anything like that, which is good to know. So cool. Well, we again thank you guys for
ちょっと一番最後の割と重要な質問だったんだけどな、聞き逃しちゃった。
News coming down the line for Diablo IV as we get closer to 2.1, but we do have a blog that will be going live this afternoon, probably at
はい、とにかくこの
full patch notes for this PTR will be next Wednesday. So
フルパッチノートは次の来週の水曜日、それとブログポストがこのストリーム配信の後直後に来ますと。
And of course, patch 2.1 PTR is launching on December 3rd for PC BattleNet users. So really looking forward to people jumping in, trying everything that we talked about today, including the new features, including the armory, including all the Season 7 stuff with witchcraft powers and occult gems that we actually heard from Dan as well. So huge thanks to Dan out in Albany, and of course,
はい、以上みたいですね。はい。だいぶ5時に終わらせるように頑張ろうとしていたみたいですね。
And we'll check you guys out in Hantu. See you guys. Thanks.
Thanks.
はい。ちょっと珍妙なのは、PTR の開始日ですか？開始日が、言及されてなかったことなんですけれども、誰か、言及しているのをお聞きになった方いますかね？ ちょっと私は、出なかったような気がしますけれども。はい。まあ、とりあえず、すぐこの後、POE2 のですね、配信の方に移りたいと思いますので、一旦、はい、PTR のキャンプファイアチャットについては、ここまでにしたいと思います。よろしければチャンネル登録等々、ご検討いただけるとありがたいです。それでは、一旦お疲れ様でした。ちょっとお待ちくださいね。で、POE の方の、アドレス、一応、掲示しておきます。はい。それでは POE の POE2 の方に移りたいと思います。一旦この配信は閉じます。お疲れ様でした。フールさんもうっちゃりさんもお疲れ様でした。